and as trailed here, our very own delightful Philip Davies. So the missus is back in government.
She is, yes. It was a shock all round, I think. It was certainly a shock to us.
Right. You see, I think Esther Mcvey has too much common sense to want to be the common sense minister. From what I know about her, I don't think it's entirely complimentary, Philip. I think she's better than that.
In what way? What do you mean?
What I mean by that is I think she should have... She's been a good MP for a while now. How many years has she been an MP for?
Well, in total, 11, I think.
11 years. She's got the experience. She's got the skills. I think they should, if they wanted her in there, give her a proper top-tier cabinet position. Why not?
Well, you'd have to ask the Prime Minister about why he gave her the position he did and not another one. But look, I think the point is that, you know, I think you don't have to be a political genius to work out the Conservative Party's not in the best of shape at the moment, if you just look at the poll ratings. And so I think it's incumbent upon anybody who's asked to get involved and join up and try and help the situation to do so. And that's really the basis upon which Esther wanted to help the Prime Minister. You know, the Conservative Party's needs, you know, we've got a big year ahead of us to try and bring things round, and everyone needs to put their shoulder to the wheel to try and do so.
I get that, but what does the job entail? So she's in the Cabinet Office, so she's going to have a roving brief, and she's been called the Minister for Common Sense. So what is she going to do? What will her day entail?
Well, it's not. I'm not the Prime Minister, Andrew, who sort of sets the ministerial
She must have had that conversation with the Prime Minister when she accepted the job.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think she's got to make the job her own, basically. Yeah. I mean, it's a new job, and so it's up to her to put her stamp on it. And one thing that anyone knows about Esther, she'll certainly put a stamp on it. And so, but I think, you know, the idea will be that she'll be able to work with government departments to try and bring forward some common sense measures, and no doubt there'll always be a role for somebody in the Cabinet Office to squash any ideas that are coming through that are not sensible and common sense. I think it's the Cabinet Office has that role to try and promote good things and squash bad things.
We were talking earlier to Ben Abib from Reform UK. He said diversity, equality, inclusion. That's the root of a lot of these problems, because they're always put first. Diversity, whether it's because of your sexuality, so black people, ethnic. She's going to have to try. Can she reverse that trend now in government? Is that going to be part of her job? Well, to just all be treated equally?
Well, you know, she's, like you say, there's a big role. There's an awful lot of woke stuff, non-common sense that goes on in government. Her job is to do what she can to try and put a stop to some of the nonsense that we see, bring a bit of common sense back to things. That, you know, there's a huge amount of taxpayers' money wasted on all this equality, diversity and inclusion thing, national government, local government. You know, there's no doubt she's got her work cut out, because there's a huge blob in there in government who are very keen on all of these things.
They will try and crush her.
Of course. You know, but those of us who've tried to do that know that it's not easy to.
And obviously you've woken up this morning. We've got the front page of the Mail here, picture of Cameron, picture of Esther on the front page. You see, this changes your family life. It changes your personal life as well to some degree, doesn't it? Because she will be much more in the public eye now than she has been. She's been able to be on GBNews and do a great job and get on with representing her constituents. But this changes the focus on you guys. How do you feel about that?
Well, you know, I'll always support Esther in whatever she chooses to do, and you know, and I certainly, you know, from the Prime Minister's point of view, if you're looking for a minister for common sense, where better to come than GB News to find a minister for common sense?
But actually, wouldn't you think that common sense would just run around every theme? It should just all of those people with those sorts of responsibilities should have their own common sense. How is Esther going to change anything?
Well, I mean, I agree. In an ideal world, you would be able to rely on everybody. But look, I think people outside of politics underestimate how demanding being a government minister, how things are just thrown at you all the time, and things can get, you know, they get through the net. Even really good ministers sometimes miss something that's been sneaked through by the establishment. And so it's always good to have somebody there in the nets as a goalkeeper to look at everything that's coming through, to say, hold on a minute, how has this been allowed to come through? And I think one of the key roles that Esther will be able to play, hopefully, is to see all these things that are coming through, and if something does slip through the net, to be able to say, actually, we need to stop this.
Well, let me ask you, sacking of Suella Braverman, you didn't agree with that, did you?
Look, I'm a massive fan of Suella's. I agree with her on everything. I think she put the Prime Minister in a really difficult position. She wasn't sacked for what she believes in.
No.
I think that, in terms of the protests, the Prime Minister had said pretty much the same as Suella about the protests over the weekend. He wanted them stopped as well. Suella was sacked because she was writing articles and things like this without clearance from Number 10. And you can't have anarchy in government. And you might say, well, it's all right because we agreed with what she said. But when the next minister goes off piece and writes something that we don't agree with, how does the Prime Minister discipline them when he's done nothing? She put him in a difficult position. And if he sacked her, he gets accused of being, a big lefty who's kicked out somebody who was talking common sense. I can assure you, if he hadn't sacked her, he'd have been accused of being weak and allowing his authority to be undermined. He was in a no-win situation.
What about the return of Call Me Dave? The Chillax Dave.
Yeah, I didn't see that one coming. I didn't see that one coming either. I mean, look, nobody voted against, no Conservative MP voted against David Cameron's government more often than me.
That's very true.
I disagreed with him on many things when he was in government. But look, I think in terms of Britain on the world stage, I actually think it's quite good to have a former Prime Minister as Foreign Secretary. I think it does add some lustre to the country on the world stage. And look, this idea that David Cameron's becoming Foreign Secretary to get us back into the EU,
no, that's nonsense.
It's just a load of old rubbish. If David Cameron wanted to get us back into the EU, he'd have stayed on as Prime Minister after the referendum and worked and done it then. He walked away because he didn't want to get us back into the EU because he accepted the result of the referendum. So, I think that anyone who thinks that's in cloud cuckoo land.
Except that those of us who worry that those at the top tier of government don't have the best interests of Britain at heart and are some kind of globalist puppets for whether that's corporate pressure that's being exerted on them. We know he got in trouble with Greensill. He worries me. He worries me. I'm not sure that his heart is in it for us.
Well, of all my criticisms of David Cameron, that isn't one of them. I mean, he's deeply patriotic. We might have different opinions about what is the right thing for the country, but I certainly don't worry about that with David Cameron. I think the point that Chris Hope made earlier is a legitimate one about scrutiny of the House of Commons of the Foreign Secretary. I think that's a very legitimate point. And I know the Speaker of the House of Commons is concerned about that too, and rightly so. It's his job to be concerned about things like that. I think that's a legitimate criticism of his appointment, but I don't think anything else is. I think actually, he's a high-caliber person who's got lots of experience. He will add lustre to the country on the world stage. I think that's all a good thing. And he's not going to try and undermine Brexit from within. That is not what David Cameron believes in.
No, he might overshadow the boss, though.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Well, I hope that Esther does overshadow your boss. Because the government's loss, the government's gain is GBNews' loss.
Yeah, we'll miss your show on a Saturday morning.
Yes. Well, I'm in the market for a new wife, if anybody's...
A new wife? I think you'll find bigamy is illegal. Oh, you mean a television wife?
I'll let you draw what you want.
Is Beverly going to audition?
Well, as I say, I hear Suella Braverman's got a bit of time on her hands. That might make compulsive viewing on the Saturday.
And you obviously like her very much, Philip.
I do like her very much.
Well, there you go.